Lately, I've been obsessed with all things Chanel. Chain, pearls, and embellishments are trending, and it's all about the DIY jeweled slide. In this video, I show you how. It's just one of the many projects I'm doing this summer, so be sure to become a subscriber so you don't miss a moment. Everything you need is listed in the description box down below. See you at the finish line. Okay, party people, so here's what you're going to need for this project. I did find that these ran big, so I normally wear a 10. I actually had to buy an 8, so make sure you try those on prior to purchasing if you were thinking about doing that online. So here's some leather, and also I just want to mention for this particular project, you can use fabric if you want. Filler, so for mine, I'm going to be using this craft foam. I picked out 3 different sizes. As a pattern wheel, do that. Gel pen, ruler, scissors, tape, thread. You're going to need a couple kinds of glue. You're going to need some spray mount possibly, or just some regular glue. You're going to need some needles. Okay, party people, so let's get started with today's tutorial. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to take your slide. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make a pattern for this whole top portion. Okay, take a piece of tissue paper, cut it down to a smaller size, and then lay it down on there. Okay, and so the reason that we're using tissue paper is that I feel that you can get a better impression to get the correct size by using that. And then all I'm doing is I'm just, pushing it down and forming it so that we know exactly what size this thing is. Then I'm going back over with a silver gel pen. Roughly is the pattern. Okay, so then we're going to pop this off. So we shoot to the side, and then this is our left foot, left. So we're going to write left, left master. Okay, and then we also want to mark where which part is the inside and which is the outside. Okay, so next, what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of paper, you're going to fold it the long way in half, and then what you'll do is you'll just take some spray mount and spray it in between. I basically did that already, and I ended up with this, and then I took my master pattern and laid that on top. Okay, so that's how I got there. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out exactly as it is. All right, on all sides. So laying it on there to make sure that it fits perfectly. And we're going to go back to so make another one of these. Spray mount, all that jazz. Lay this on there. And then this time what we're going to do is we're going to take our pencil. Okay. Lay that on there. And just leave yourself a little bit of breathing room on this thing. Okay, so that there's enough space all around. Okay. Then take a plastic ruler, and then we're going to add, okay, I think you all can see that. So you've added 3/8 of an inch all the way around. And then this is just something that I do. I'll go in and I will take out the inside line. Remember, we called this left master. We're going to now call this quilting guide left. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out. Right, so we've got that on there. Then we want to do is we want to figure out how we want to do our quilting. So now this is something that I did that's completely arbitrary. So I kind of figured out where the center of this might be, and I marked the line. So I'm going to put the big ones down the center and do an arrangement, and then I'm going to put the next size on either side, and then I'm going to finish up with the small ones on the far sides of this thing. And so I figure I probably want an inch space between. You know, again, you guys can do whatever you want. This is what I'm going to do. So basically, if I measure from line to line, y'all can see that it's 3 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the inch interval on that. I made a line down the center. And then from there, I went down a 1/2 inch and went down a 1/2 inch, and then to each side added another 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch down, 1/2 inch out on each side. And then I just made a triangle, my guide, to make all of my other lines. And that's how I was able to get to this. And so when you use a plastic ruler, it's easier, I think, because all you're going to do is you're just going to mark your line and then slide, right? That's basically all it is to that. And now I've got my pattern. Okay, so for the filler, so this is the part that will go in between the two layers. Well, let me show you what I've got. So I've cut out the pieces. So there are 2 which are lefts, and then there are 2 which are rights. Okay, and so the easiest thing to do is you just trace it, and then you flip it upside down, and then trace 2 more on your material. Okay, that's how I got there. Now let's move on and talk about the filler that's in between. So in order to do quilting, you have to have a layer in between for it to quilt. So that's how that's done. So that's the only difference. This is, as I said, craft foam. Now we're not going to be using this pattern. We're going to go back to our master pattern, because this quilting business needs to sit inside of this, and we don't want it to go to the edges because we're going to turn those under, and that's why I had you make 2 patterns. So let's cut this out. Okay, so what you want to do next is you want to take your tracing wheel, lay down your pattern, and then what you're going to do, and normally when you use this, you use a piece of tracing paper. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to do it hard enough so that it goes through all of these lines, and then I can see that when I take it to the sewing machine. Okay, so you can see the quilting marks that I've transferred. Okay, we've got some rubber cement, and what we're going to do is we're going to put these layers together. And so what you should have is an outside layer where you've done your quilting. You should have an inside layer, which is the foam or filler, and then your back layer. Now, whenever I'm gluing, what I do is I take an old magazine that I don't care about anymore. I open this up, and then I lay my pieces inside, and then I lay my pieces inside of here so that I don't mess up my work surface doing a bunch of gluing, you know, and getting things all like messy and gunked up. So I'll just get this on here, and Just want to show you where we're at this moment. What we have now is our quilted piece, and I just literally pulled this right off of the sewing machine. As you can tell, I've still got my threads still hanging on. I still have all my threads hanging out. Super easy, nothing too complicated here for you sewer people. Okay, so I've clipped all my threads. All those are gone, and then I also have this edge, so I'm just going to cut that down. Not all the way to the line, but pretty close as I can get it without going over. So just needle and thread, and then I'm going to come up with some type of a pattern of the beads, these pearls, bead pearls, on the surface. And so this is all I'm doing. So I'm just going up through the bottom of wherever I want the bead to be, which as I explained is at the corner, right, of this quilting. Then I'm pulling the needle up, I'm picking up a bead, right, slipping it on, going back here and going back right back down. This is how mine turned out. And so I put the small ones on the outside, as you can tell, and then I put the assortment of bigger ones and smaller ones in the center. And so if you know how to sew, this is not difficult. The only thing that I did do, let me see, bring this up close to you so y'all can see, is I just centered the bead right where the quilting intersects, so right there in that spot. So again, basic sewing technique, thread your needle, sew it, go through the bead, back down, and do this part, and that's what you will end up. Your beads coming off, I did try using this product, and I've got a link to it in the description box. And what I did was I just squirted a little bit underneath the bead and let it sit, pressed it down a little bit, like don't go crazy. But I put a little bit in there and just let it sit overnight. And there's a couple of these. Let's see if I can find one where it's, and this one is, I used a little bit of glue, and so you can see in there, it's on there really good. In addition to, I think y'all can see in addition to the thread. So I'm using the E6000. Either one of these glues will work really well on this, and then just put it down really easy. I think for me, just because I just want to make, if y'all have been watching my channel, y'all already know how I get down. So I always want everything as perfect and pristine as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the glue on the slide, and then I will position this over the top. So let me just work on that real quick. Alright, party people, that's it for today's tutorial. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for watching and rocking with me. If you haven't become a subscriber, I invite you to do that now so you can stay up with all the long-ass content that I'm going to be posting. Because I've got a couple of interesting things coming up this summer. I think that's it. Until next time, I wish you bag success. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.